I'm just going to cut right to the chase. The traditional DFS tools, from projections to optimizers, are outdated, and they're costing you time and money by forcing you to do unnecessary busy work and make expensive mistakes. We built SaberSim to change all that and give you tools designed to beat today's tough games. My name's Andy Baldacci, I'm the CEO of SaberSim, and over the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to show you how we do that. If you play DFS to make some extra cash on the side, but have to balance that with a full-time job, a family, or just everything else going on in life, then you need to hear this. Even if you're already crushing the game and have all the time in the world, I guarantee what I'm going to cover is going to change how you think about DFS and help you make better lineups. So let's just jump right into it. It's not like the early days of DFS when even knowing what a stack was practically made you unbeatable, and I'm really not kidding. This is what it felt like everyone else was doing back then. If you could boil down what it takes to beat today's games into a single phrase, it would be this: maximize your upside. That's what winning at DFS is all about. But what does that actually mean? Upside means doing all of the things it takes to separate yourself from the rest of the field. And there are 3 keys to doing that: finding the right stacks and value plays, picking good spots to fade the chalk, and building lineups that capitalize on all of that. But traditional DFS tools weren't built to find upside, so the process takes way longer than it needs to, and it gives you worse results, which isn't exactly what you want, is it? Let's talk about the 2 main culprits in the old DFS process: projections and optimizers. And before you take out the pitchforks, it's not that the tools don't work, it's that the job they're designed to do isn't the job you actually need them to do. And that's really the problem with DFS today. The tools and process that everyone talks about make things so complicated that it's no wonder the vast majority of people lose at DFS. And maybe you're one of the few who do get results with those tools. And when it comes down to it, there are thousands of people making money using the traditional DFS process. But getting there takes a ton of time that most of us don't have. And just because you can make it work doesn't mean it's the best way. You could also be doing this at the gym and maybe make some gains if you really stuck with it, but I don't know if any of us would actually say that's the best strategy. Don't get me wrong though, I'm not here to tell you it doesn't take work to beat DFS, because it does. What I am saying is that the old way is broken and there is a new, less complicated way for you to beat DFS, even if you don't have an unlimited bankroll or a ton of free time. Now, before I get into this new approach to DFS and how SaberSim fits in, I want to make it clear why the old process is broken so you can learn how to fix it. I'm not going to lie, SaberSim makes everything I'm going to talk about a lot easier and more effective, but even if you never use our product, what you're going to learn in these next few minutes will change the way you play DFS. When it comes down to it, the traditional DFS process is broken because of 2 fundamental, unavoidable flaws. First, traditional projections are averages, and averages hide upside. Second, optimizers are literally designed to ignore upside. Let's jump into that first problem. Average projections hide upside. When you think about it, projections are the foundation of any DFS process. The problem is that we take those projections for granted and don't actually think about what they're telling us. The projections you see everywhere are simply the scores someone is saying each player is going to get on average. And that seems pretty reasonable at first. But to maximize upside, you don't really care about a player's average performance. You care about their top performance and how often they get there. And averages do a horrible job of showing you that because they don't represent the reality of sports. Averages are useful when a range of outcomes is normally distributed, which just means that the range of outcomes follows a bell curve, and this is what a bell curve looks like. Really what it's saying is that the average, or the mean, is also the most common number, the mode, and the middle number. Those 3 types of averages are all the same when it follows a bell curve. It also says that the numbers the same amount above and below the average occur with the same frequency. So using that logic, what it is telling us is that a batter who has a projection of 13 points is as likely to score 23 points as they are 3 points, because both numbers are 10 points away from the average. If you've played any DFS baseball at all, then you know that is not at all true. This is what reality looks like, and I'm going to tell you in a little bit how we get this data, but what it's showing you is that even the best hitters like Mike Trout shown here are going to get 3 points about twice as often as they get 23 points. The bell curve also assumes that players get negative 13 points as often as they get 33 points. And we know this can't be true because batters can't even get negative points in DFS. That seems like a little bit of a problem, doesn't it? You can spend all of the time you want digging into stats, splits, recent performance, weather, Vegas odds, whatever you think you need to supplement your projections, but it's not going to change the fact that you're building on a faulty foundation. This is why you're always second guessing yourself when you submit your lineups. Did I pick the right stacks? Is this guy a good value play or is he a trap? You feel like you're missing something because when you rely on incomplete data, you usually are. When you use average projections, you dramatically underestimate the frequency of below average outcomes, while at the same time not properly accounting for a player's true upside. If you want to win, you need data that gives you a true look at what can happen in a given game, and average projections cannot give you that. The second problem I mentioned before is that optimizers ignore upside. When we talk about high upside lineups, we mean lineups that consistently perform better than their projections would have you believe. The problem is that lineup optimizers literally by definition optimize exclusively on average projected scores with no consideration at all for any of the components of upside. This is why you have to tweak so many settings to get optimizers to give you lineups that have any shot of winning. You need to fight what they are built to do in order to get stacks, in order to get ownership plays, and to get the right diversity. Let's dig into those points a bit more to see why they're so important. And I'm going to talk about correlations first, and this is where the value of stacking comes from. While there are going to be lineups that are made of individual players with higher projections than the ones that are in stacks, the problem is that the performance of each of those individual players is independent of the others. So if you want to win, if you want that lineup of individual players to get a high score, then you need each of them to have that amazing game at the same time. This is basically like rolling a die for each player and hoping that each of those die come up with a high number. On the other hand, by taking advantage of correlations and stacks and rostering positively correlated players, it's like only needing to roll one die, because if any of those players do well, if that number comes up high, it's going to directly boost the performance of the others. It's hard enough to win as it is. Don't make it any harder. Stack the odds in your favor. Now let's talk about the other piece of upside that optimizers ignore: ownership. If the name of the game in DFS was just to beat a specific score, then you wouldn't care who else had your players in their lineups. But you're not playing against a house in DFS. You're playing against everybody else in your contests, and to win, you have to beat all of their scores. This doesn't mean that you should just blindly ignore the highest projected players, but if everyone else has those same players, then it doesn't do you any good when they go off, because everyone else is benefiting as well. But say you faded a 50% owned player, and they had a bad night, that means half the field is now at a huge disadvantage to you. To maximize upside, you need to separate yourself from the field, and you do that by leveraging ownership. I could go on and on, but I think you get the point. If you want to win at DFS today, you need to make lineups with high upside, and to do that, you need projections that give you more than an average, and you need to account for correlations and ownership. If that's what it takes to win, and I think we can all agree on that, then how nuts is it that we have to wade through a sea of numbers to do our research, only to have to struggle with an optimizer that makes us tweak and retweak dozens of settings just to get those kind of lineups? It's insane. But when you're using a tool that was built when a score that would win a tournament then sometimes wouldn't even cash now, what can you really expect? Those glory days of DFS are no more, so stop using the tools built for them. It's time that you use SaberSim, the only toolkit built for what it takes to win at DFS today. Here's how we do it. Working with some of the top names in DFS like Giant Squid and No More I Love Yous, we've built and refined a one-of-a-kind simulator that takes dozens of performance predictors and uses them to simulate every single game, play-by-play, thousands of times. This gives us incredibly detailed and accurate projections that go way beyond averages. Rather than giving you just a single number, our unique projections show you a player's true range of possible outcomes for a game like we showed you before. This lets you quickly narrow down the top plays and make informed decisions without hours of research, because it's easy to spot where the upside is. We combine those detailed projections with our powerful lineup builder that lets you decide how much weight you want to give to correlations and ownership, and how diverse you want your lineups to be. Then in just a few clicks, we give you a pool of strong lineups that you can tweak on the fly, dialing in your exposures exactly the way you want them without having to start from scratch over and over again. No one else can do this, or frankly even come close. And sure, you could keep doing what you've been doing, just like you could also play golf with wooden clubs or only shoot two-pointers in basketball. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, and if you don't care about winning, then more power to you. But if you've been struggling to consistently win, or you want to compete at a higher level, then you need to use the right tools for the job. You need SaberSim. You've already taken the first step and started a free trial. Now you have to get in there and play around with it. The process is a little bit different than most. And after this video though, I hope you understand why, but we have tried to make it all as easy to use and intuitive as possible. If you want a quick overview of the product itself, you can check out a demo I put together walking you through how it all works. That video is going to give you a good foundation to start experimenting from, but we've also put together videos walking you through how we actually use the tools ourselves for each sport. These really get into the specifics of how to adapt for the different scenarios that come up day to day in DFS. If you're watching this and you haven't started a free trial yet, then just click the Start My Free Trial button in the top right of the screen. It's completely free to try it. If you don't love it, cancel your account. It only takes a couple seconds to do, and you're not going to be charged a cent. The games are getting harder every season, so if you want to stay ahead of the curve, you're in the right place. We've made it as easy as possible to build high upside lineups. Now it's time to get into SaberSim and do it. If you have any questions at all along the way, we're always happy to help. You can just shoot us an email at support@sabersim.com. Thanks and good luck.